Good morning, everyone, or good evening, or good afternoon, I guess, depending on where you are. But welcome to the 7th volume of Celebrating Creativity. Really grateful that you are here today or you're watching the replay. So, just to tell you a little bit about what this event is. So, basically, it's like a bunch of amazing people coming on and sharing how they enjoy celebrating the creativity of others, whether it happens to be their friends, their family, their colleagues, their students, I mean, whoever, and how they like to do that, whether it's something with technology or something just like a message to each other. I mean, you'll see from those that are presenting today that they have a variety of different ways in which they like to do that and encourage that. So without much further ado, I'm going to bring on our first presenter, who is Melisa.
Hello.
So
Thanks
I'm going to
so
take
much for having me.
my screen off, and if you have your screen to share, and I will pop it up. But welcome here today. Very grateful that you are able to share. It's very exciting.
Thank you.
Okay. I can see what you want to share. You want to share your whole screen? Yes, here we go.
Are we there? I don't see me, so I'm just making
Yes,
sure.
it is. It
Okay.
looks amazing. Okay, I will see you soon and have fun.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Mel, for asking me and these other amazing presenters to share our creativity. I am sharing my kids because I'm going to brag on them. Every year I brag. But we were lucky enough to be one of the many, many hosts for Global Maker Day. Mary Alice Curran and Jamie Donnelly reached out, and I said, yes, my kids would love to. So this tweet kind of shows a little about our topic was emotions matter. So before we even brainstorm, we talked about emotions and how they affect every part of our life. And we talked about, is this something that affects our health? What happens when we have these emotions and can we control them? Great conversation. And then we listed all these emotions that we have throughout the day, frustration, nerves, anxiousness, sadness, and what do we do with all those nerves? Then we brainstormed ways to control, not really control, but let them out in a productive way. Let's face it, when we get angry, sometimes the emotions go a little haywire. So we presented on Global Maker Day, and the topic was Emotions Matter, SDG 3, which was good health and well-being. So I'm going to show you some ideas that my kids came up with. The first one, there was about 3 or 4 of these. There we go. This one was looking at the picture to calm down and share your feelings and know you are loved. They always had those good positivity thoughts. So you were supposed to stare at this picture for like 10 seconds and then just breathe in and out, calming down. There was another picture. It said, if you're feeling angry, or let's see, what was it? If you're feeling angry, mad, nervous, or emotional, you can do the Take 5 strategy, which you would hold your hand out and trace your fingers and breathe in and out as you're tracing the fingers. Another one, another picture here. This one was really cool. She did this on Sketch of School, and there's a picture that's hidden within the shaded part, so it's kind of like a scratch off. So you would breathe in and out and scratch off the picture, which was so amazing to see. This one was a coloring page that he did. So you could color, another coloring page, another coloring page. These kiddos did an exercise video. So the tools that, and I presented it in a way that there's kids all around the world that are having these same feelings that you are. What are some tools that they can use to help them? And they came up with so many ways. And this creativity is just crazy. And by the way, I teach 2nd grade. So these are 7 and 8-year-olds. So this was an exercise video they did on Flip. I didn't put in videos because I didn't think I don't have the best luck. So I could see something not working or delaying. This kiddo did a story on CodeSpark, which I thought was awesome. This kiddo we had some fidgets. So I had like STEM items laid out. So she did a fidget that was just, you could push in. There was a couple of ideas on this one. So there was push little puff balls and then a straw where you could hear the popping. Then if you flipped it over, as you can see, there's cotton balls there that you can push too. Then she added another element, which is a straw, and you could twist it. You could spin it. So not only could you squish it, but you could spin this fidget when you're feeling anxious, nervous, sad, frustrated. This kiddo did 2 fidgets. The wooden one is more of a spinning. He actually gave that to me because I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. This is amazing. So it kind of spun around, intertwined, and it just kept going. And then the other one was a fidget. There were googly eyes you could push in, which was really cool, and the straws. This kiddo, oh wait, I missed a fidget. This fidget, she used an umbrella where they could push it up, along with the pushing down certain items that made noises and whatnot. This kiddo created a calming song for you to listen to on GarageBand, which was so cool. I can't get enough of these kids. They're so amazing. This one wrote a story about how your feelings matter and things that you could do. It was actually a kid who, you know, was really nervous at school and what he did. I had a couple of kiddos create a dance on code.org, just getting up and moving. So that was pretty much the gist. I mean, there was other extras. Another thing, we have creativity all day, every day. So another thing that we did was a fashion show. There was a box out in the hall and they dressed up however they would like. And then the kids took pictures of them. They picked a model and wrote a review. So obviously they were creative in their attire and shared out writing of the model, and it worked on adjectives. We love to do stems. These are some of the stems that we've done, which is, let me hit that once, a cloud viewer, which is the top and bottom, creating a playground. We were virtual, so all these pictures were virtual when we did our stem. There was the dot day frames. There was a pinwheel. We've also done, this one's with my most recent class, we did a cloud viewer. They did an amazing job. Some of them had like this kiddo had the plate on the head as a stand to where they could look and it wouldn't fall off. These used glasses, so it wasn't just 2, you could get 2 cups. It was one of each, so they really had to be creative. Down at the bottom, she cut the plates in half to make a stand, and then the cup was in the middle. Just amazing. This one was Cinderella stem, where they had to create a shoe that wouldn't fall off your foot. They actually put it on their foot. It had to be pretty, 70 inches long. They used Padlet, and then they used Flip to create a persuasive where they're selling the product to Cinderella and giving reasons why they should choose their shoe. And we also, I think most of us know me for this, where I use Remove a lot. It's really good with the littles. I know other programs to use Remove the background, but Remove is just easier for my littles. They actually had to write an opinion piece on the most dangerous weather condition, and this was during our weather unit. They had the scene, they took the picture, they removed the background, they used Pic Collage, and they wrote their piece, and these were just amazing. This was from last year. This one was last year, and then the most recent was this year. Just utterly, the creativity is mind-blowing. And then the last thing I'll share is we read Turkey Trouble, which was a turkey who was in fear of getting eaten. So we dressed up as other things, and we didn't have time to do it as a stem. So we just did it digitally. And this little girl, I looked at it, I was like, there's no turkey here. She was so creative. So that's pretty much all I have, but I hope everyone can take a little piece and know that no matter the age or the ability, everyone has creativity that they can share.
That was amazing, Melissa.
Thanks.
I mean, so many different examples of how you're doing creativity with your kids, and your kids are so young.
Yeah, they're really little.
Another level. Do you use Padlet to share out like what they're creating with the
Or Wakelet, either one.
wait,
Wakelet and Padlet, those are my two main ones. Yeah.
that was amazing. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks.
I'm sure that many people are inspired now. Like, how can I do these things now? I need to connect with Melissa. Because,
Well, thanks for
wow,
having me.
no problem. I will see you again soon, but thank you so much again.
Thanks.
Bye. Okay, so hopefully you're like epically inspired by that because I was. I teach high school kids, but I'm like, wow, that was amazing. So next up we have Bryan, and I'm going to bring him up now.
Hi. Trying to get my share screen to work here. There we go.
Take your time.
I had it right, and then I turned it off. Then you know how it goes.
I know exactly how that goes. It's basically the same all the time. But yes, apologies. A movement.
Yes. Is it there? Can you see my other?
It has not.
No?
Yet.
Okay, hold on.
It's okay.
Okay. Hold on. Go to the. We might have to switch me and come back because it's not letting me.
So, okay, if it's not happening.
Yeah, skip me and come back. I'm gonna have to. I think I have to restart my Chrome. Yes.
Okay, I will bring you back
Sorry.
later. That's okay. Okay, so I'm going to bring up Heather. If you're ready, Heather. Hopefully you are.
Good morning.
Hello, Heather.
Maybe not for you guys, but for me, good morning.
Okay, so for you, if you want to share your screen, just let me know.
Yes, let's see if I can do this.
I'm sure you can. Don't worry.
Let's-
Tech problems are normal.
Yep. Do you see my screen?
Yes, I do. I will bring that up
Perfect.
to you. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Fantastic.
You see it?
So I'm gonna.
Because I can't
Yes,
see anything.
it is here. It is ready to roll. I'm going to remove myself, and you have fun. Okay.
Okay. So this is me. I'm a K-5 math interventionist and STEAM teacher. I've been teaching since 2009. I'm a teacher ambassador and upcoming Teacher Goals author, where I'm writing a book about using Canva to create a more creative and engaging math classroom, because math should be fun. Math should be engaging. Math is a creative subject, even though many people don't view it as that. I'm also the co-host of Teacher Goals Tech Talks. So for math creativity, excuse me one moment. Math should be about puzzles and patterns, and it's all over the world, and people don't realize it. So like my dad is a carpenter, and the other day I said, hey, what type of mathematic tools do you use? And he's like, what are you talking about? I don't do math. I can't do math. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad, you're a carpenter. You measure stuff all the time. And that's just a basic one. And because he was never good at math in school, he doesn't think that he does math. And so I have to dispel that whole myth. So even little kids love the puzzles and patterns, whether it's with beads or with the actual puzzles that connect. I also make sure to highlight mistakes. I know that sounds silly, but if you can find out why a student is making a mistake, it's like solving a puzzle, because then you can also show other students the mistake. And students shouldn't be afraid of having those mistakes, right? So, again, I apologize. I have a slight cold here. We should show students that it is perfectly okay to make mistakes and to embrace those mistakes, because chances are someone else is thinking the same thing. I also am all about authentic learning. So I hate paper and pencil tests. I absolutely hate them. I would rather have students design something or argue something or make a flip showing how to do something than just paper and pencil. And there are so many kids who they know how to do the math, but because they have to write it down or because there's an extra step to the process, they suddenly think they can't do the math. So by adding in different pieces of technology like Flip and having them explain it, you take that piece out. And one of the big problems I have seen is when students struggle with reading, then all of a sudden when they have the math word problems or whatever other topic, they struggle. But if we take out those components and really focus on the math puzzles and patterns and the fun parts about math, they can do it. Have them create. So I have a few examples for you for my math things. So I'm going to show you some fraction menu examples. So I taught third grade before I took my current position. And fractions was a really big standard for us. And so instead of having the students complete a paper pencil test, I had them make a fraction menu. They went onto Canva and they had requirements, but they got to make a menu for a pizza restaurant. Okay. They had to be able to do so much more within this than I could have had on a paper pencil test. So here's our first example. So this student made theirs about monster pizza. And when you fold it, it makes more sense, but brochures always look silly when they're shown digitally. So you can see that you have your monster pizza. And if you look at the pictures, they're all about monsters. They had to write the place that the monsters or the pizza place is. And in this case, they had a secret location because it makes sense being monsters. To add a little extra, they had to persuade you to go there. And so it went beyond the math. It went into the ELA standards and the speaking standards. Your stomach should not growl like a monster. Eat like a monster at Monster Pizza. So they had to be creative. They had to be fun. And it wasn't just, oh, what's this fraction? It's all of a sudden they get to be creative. Now, this part is actually the math part. So stop that. So they had to make 3 different sizes of pizza. Most students chose small, medium, and large, but the student was extra creative with their monsters. And they chose friendly, which is 6 slices, and it's $1 per slice. So they have a full pizza, and it's divided into 6 slices at $1 per slice. The vampire is divided into 8 slices at $3 per slice. And then there's the fuzzy that's 12 slices, $5 per slice. So as you see, the whole is getting bigger. That's why they can charge more. But here's where the magic happened. They had to make deals. So the friendly deal. So we're looking back over here with the 6 slices and the $1 per slice. You can buy 4/6 or 2/3. Right there, they had to figure out equivalent fractions for $3. But they also had to make sure that this deal, $3, was better than the normal. So 4 of the 6 would be 4 times 1 would be $4. So $3 is a better deal. And then they had to do the same with the vampire deal and the fuzzy deal. So now we have equivalent fractions going on. We're comparing. We're making sure that our math makes sense. And then they had to be able to explain information about fractions. So think about a small pizza like a cupcake and a large pizza like a normal cake. I'd rather eat half of a normal cake than a cupcake because the whole is larger. So they were showing that they understand that that piece of the whole is so incredibly important when you're talking about fractions. And I like that they compared it to the cupcake and cake. So that's one of their examples. I had another student who took it a completely different way because this student likes to challenge me and pick on me a bit. Because I said it had to be a pizza, they just decided to switch it up and make not pizza, just a pie. And since it was still using the same fractions, I let her do it. But this is the type of thing I deal with in my creative classroom because they know I like them to be creative. And so they had pies instead. And again, they had small, medium, and large. And so this one even put change in with the money. So for the small, there's 4 slices and it's $1 per slice. But if they buy a half, it's for $1.50 versus $2. So it makes sense. Again, those are just 2 of the examples. And oh my gosh, so much more fun than a test. And it really made them think. Okay, now this is the one I'm doing right now. And please let me know if I'm running out of time because this is something I'm really passionate about. So let me know. My 3rd grade STEAM kids are working on this right now, actually. This is a Santa's workshop template. If you look at my link to the presentation, you will have this as well to look at. Okay, let's make this bigger for you guys. I don't know if he'll let me do 2 presentations at once, but we'll see. Okay, so this is the Santa's workshop. Basically, what students are doing is they are creating a workshop for Santa. Okay, but there are some requirements. This is focusing on area and perimeter. Now, I have a 3D printer. So the winner of this competition is going to get their workshop 3D printed as a souvenir. Well, I didn't really tell them that all of them are going to get them 3D printed, but little competition never hurt anyone. So Santa wrote some notes for the students to figure out what they need in this workshop. Here, they actually get to create the blueprint. So for those students who are still counting the squares to figure out area, they can do that. For the students who are using different shapes, like the ones who have figured out how to find the area of triangles instead of rectangles, they can do that as well. Even though I did say to create transparent rectangles for each of the rooms. And then there's requirements. They have to have reindeer quarters, Santa's office, the bathroom, workshop, but don't forget to use the extra rooms. And then there's questions about it. So how much drywall do we need? And it works them through the steps. And then did you use area or perimeter to help make your decision and explain? They have to explain the difference between area and perimeter, but it's way more fun than just writing it on a piece of paper. And now that the drywall's up, they have to paint. So then they have to figure out how many gallons of paint they need. Now that the construction is done, they get to create a new slide to show him what, apparently I wrote house instead of workshop, looks like. And no student noticed that. So I'm impressed. And then they're going to make a flip video telling him why he needs to pick theirs. So again, there's that persuasive bit. And then just some final questions, like what was the most difficult part? How did you overcome it? Really, the focus switches from math to the learning aspect. and including how can we make this more engaging? Because a lot of times those students have much better ideas than I do. That's that one. Come on, there we go. Okay, so here's just some different pictures of things that have been going on in my math class. One class had a glow party. This is actually in my STEAM, one of my STEAM classes, but it tied perfectly to math because I had them make different angles, like obtuse angles, right angles, using their glow sticks during their glow party. This middle group is middle school students using smaller shapes to try to make rectangles. And it wasn't those students who were like the typical A students in math that were doing the best with it. It was the more artistic students. So to highlight those other students in math class was amazing. In this picture, I have little kindergartners, and we have a human-sized number line, as I call it, and they absolutely love using that. And down here, students are trying to use the 3 cards to come up with a total of 21. They can add, subtract, multiply, divide, and I let them work together, but they have to beat me. And believe it or not, I've had students do a better job of hitting 21 than me. So now for STEAM. To help promote the creativity in STEAM, I like to show what they do to other classes. Like, it's hard to see in this picture, but they actually made a swing. And so I showed that to the 5th grade class because these are 4th graders. And so it made the 5th graders be like, hey, we can do that. We can do something better. And they're trying to do better, but at the same time, when they go out to lunch and stuff, they'll say, hey, I really like that swing set. We also like to have students come in and critique from other classes because they'll be like, well, what about this? And it'll be a new idea for, or a new way for students to look at things. Also, I like to share what the students do during STEAM on social media. Hi, Bryce, you're probably watching. Because I have students who will look me up just to see if I've bragged about them yet. So it's another way to just celebrate how awesome they're doing. And feature the student ideas, the ones who come up with great ideas. We need to do that more. Okay, so here are some examples of our creativity in STEAM. We make 3D printed objects. And let me tell you, I have failed more ways than I have been successful. But as I tell the kids, mistakes are important and it's how you learn. These kids had bee-bots and they had to make a path for it. And they had the most fun ever, all with just a few bee-bots. Students had to think about how they are scientists and what they previously thought a scientist looked like. This group actually used co-spaces to make their own virtual universe. And they had a blast doing it. They know more about coding than I do. And the way they were talking, honestly, was going over my head. And I'm like, guys, you're in 5th grade. How do you know all this stuff? They're like, video games. I'm like, okay, that works. Oh, I forgot I had this in here. So a lot of places do a wax museum. Now you can see looking over here that here's Thomas Jefferson and here's Thomas Jefferson. But this Thomas Jefferson is at school. But this Thomas Jefferson is in front of the White House. What we did is we made a Zoom. They picked out a Zoom background and I recorded it. That way we could still have our wax museum and share it with other families. So they had to do their research, write an essay, and then they became the person. They came up with their own costumes, and then we shared it. I also do have a Google template that you can look at if this works. Please work faster. Okay, well, I don't think it's going to work fast enough. So if you click on the picture there, you will see our 2001 wax museum, and it is amazing. And I am so proud of the students for doing that one. Now, this one should actually be the last one. I love to collaborate with my colleagues and share other people's success. So I like to highlight other people. I also think that when we work with other people, help spark our ideas. And one of the ways I like to do that is to transform classrooms, and you'll see that in a minute. But this is what a first grade class and I did when we collaborated. What? Sure, now it comes up. Oh, tech problems. Okay, so I'm going to have to fix that link, but that's okay. So what it is I'll show you this way instead. Is that playing? Okay, well, there we go. Let's try this way. I'm probably trying to do too much at once. Well, obviously the student's not actually sitting on a flower. And they had just learned about the butterfly life cycle. And so he actually tells you what the butterfly life cycle is while he is sitting there. So the first grade teacher and I came up with that together. So that's one of the advantages of collaborating. Come on, you can do it. There we go. So I have the picture of the STEAM kids again there. Here we were collaborating on making, showing how echolocation works. And you can see the excitement on their little faces. Here we were making insects that lit up. And here is the classroom transformation. Here I am with my cowgirl hat, and Chrissy's dressed up in her Western stuff. And we have our Mexican blanket. We have a snake and a horse and a fire. So we really transformed that. We had saloon doors going instead of a normal classroom door. And the kids absolutely loved it. And so now it's your turn to go on and celebrate your creativity. And I am going to fix that link.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ella. That was amazing. So many different ideas of how you celebrate the creativity and how you get like the students to see others' creations. So to inspire them to create others, you know, to push them forward, which I think was really cool. Thank you so much. I did share out the link in the chat to the presentation. Hopefully it did work. We'll see. I think that everyone can go and explore and have some fun with what you created there, which was great.
For sure. And I am going to fix that link right now.
Okay, radio. We'll see you soon. Bye for now. Okay, so next up we do have Brian, who says that he has solved the technical difficulties, which is very exciting. So I'm going to bring him up now.
Yay!
Hello, Brian.
It should work this time. And of course I said that, and so it's probably going to break. But you know, hey, I love trying. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can. I'm going to bring that up.
Yay! I love it. Okay. Awesome.
There we go. I'm going to bring
all right. So hi, I'm Bryan Wilson. I'm a teacher for social studies, English, technology. I've got many hats at my school, and I teach at a very small school in Lexington, Kentucky. And the focus of our school is that we're not a traditional high school in the sense of like the American tradition. We take a lot of kids that have special needs or just have special accommodations. They need smaller classrooms. And we are a high school inside of an elementary school building. So it's funny. But I love to show pictures because like we have cubbies in the backs of our rooms. Our rooms tend to be a little bit smaller compared to the kids that we have. And so we have some big chairs and small chairs. We're kind of in that transitioning point. But this is what my classroom kind of looks like. It is not some giant maker space. We kind of make what we can with the space we have. And what I mean by that is like I have nifty little pictures, even got my thumb in this. And we try to have conversations with kids about like happy little mistakes. How would you fix that? How would you do something with that? This past year, you can see that giant monstrosity in the back. My air conditioning broke, which I know in some places like nobody has any air conditioning, but I had to reset up my classroom and put this giant blue air conditioning monster in my room to accommodate for the room and the way it was set up. And in my classroom, I have a couple of things that are different. I think everybody has that traditional kind of like, here's some coloring, here's a box, here's some paper. I got really lucky 2 years ago. There were several of us that had Lego sets we had incorporated over the years. Like we just came across them and we kind of put them all into a box. And two of those teachers that I was with, they had transitioned out of teaching and I inherited the Lego box. And so now it sits in the front of my room and I encourage a lot of kids to come in. And if they don't want to color, if they don't want to draw, because they just may not feel that's their talent window or that's their creative space, I tell them to go get the Lego box and there's directions in there. And so you have kids kind of just create these things. And my student did not want to be in the picture. You can see the shoe at the bottom. But that was like, I take a picture of this and it reminds me like this was the first creative piece that student told me they had ever done. And I thought it was odd because she's a senior in high school. So I know she's created things before, but the way she thinks about it is not the same way others have thought about it. Like it had to be a construct. It had to be something physically done and made and completed. And I sort of asked her, well, like, what did you do? And she followed the directions. There's a direction thing in there. And she was really proud of it to the point at which like she wanted to take it home with her and show it to her parents. She really wanted to engage in it and live in this space of like, I created something. I'm very proud of it. And that strikes me as, you know, that's something that we want to have our kids always have. And seeing Melissa and Heather present so far, you know, that's what a good classroom does. You know, you make these spaces, you sort of give a little breathing room for creativity to happen, whatever it's going to be, and then sort of let it run and do its course and be what it's going to be. So one of the other things that we did in my classroom, and this was last year, this is part of Adobe Express. What they do, if you aren't familiar with Adobe Express, every month they create creativity challenges for your classroom. And one of the ones that they had was take your class, ask your students to create, you know, basically a behavior chart, like an identity of your room and what the expectations would be. And in my cohort, so I had a group of about 50 seniors last year that came into my classroom and moved around. And I asked them what would this look like? And we wrote all the words on the whiteboard and we kind of talked through it a little bit. And then I said, well, what kind of jobs do you want? And so what we did was on the graphic, we put the words, and then around each word, we sort of identified different kinds of jobs that our students wanted. So some of them wanted to be in the tech industry. Some of them wanted to be artists. Some of them wanted to be doctors or nurses. We had somebody who wanted to go into the Navy. We had somebody who wanted to go in the Army. And so when we created this piece, it wasn't just like I opened the app up and worked on it myself. I opened it up in class when we had free time and I said, okay, guys, which icon do you want? Like, what kind of background do you want? How do you want the colors? We had a very deep conversation on which color blue our tigers should be, because we're the white tigers, but our school colors are blue and green, because those are the ones that were picked before. So we had a lot of like these sort of odd conversations that you can't really plan out. But when we came back in this year, when we get to December, I'll have my kids for 3-4 months and we're going to do this again. So I'll say, what are we going to make for our chart for 2023? Like, what will be the words that we want to kind of grasp onto and look at? And and make it a part of our classroom. And what are we looking to do as teachers, or not teachers, as students? The other thing I want to share is like, this is something that I'm not the leader of it. I cannot take credit for this, but I'm very much like, I'm an STLP enthusiast. In the state of Kentucky, we have a handful of people at the top of our state leadership that really want to incorporate education, technology, encourage students to be leaders. And so we have this showcase every April. And so every school can apply in different ways. And then what happens is, you kind of like, if you're a judge, you'll come in and see this. So she was a fellow judge with me that day, has all of the ISTE standards set up. You have these tables. And if you come in early, like, this is the space. It looks like this. It's about 8:30 in the morning. There's nobody there. By 10:30 that same day, between 6 and 10,000 students across the state of Kentucky will come to this conference center and begin to present and learn how to be creative, technologically minded leaders. And it is an amazing moment every single year. If I did anything else in education, like, I would quit all of my teaching if I could just do things like this all the time. And as you can see all over, we have small elementary kids working on Osmobots, doing some other stuff. In the background, you have tables. There were 300 different projects being presented. I got to see projects everywhere from a group of high school kids who were trying to develop the best, most productive food for dog food, like create dog food cookies, like which one would the dogs in their community like the best, so they could sell them to donate the money to the animal shelter and the food shelter. And then I saw another one where a young man was trying to figure out how to launch a rocket and get permissions to launch a very small 3-foot rocket that would go up, have 2 stages to it, open up, and then collect ozone readings in the city of Louisville, and be able to do that once a week. And so, like, the gamut of choices that you see here with kids is just amazing. And it could be something too, like, my daughter's on a team right now, and they're doing different ideas too. They work on Chromebooks, like Chromebook builds in their rooms and in their buildings. They also do different design elements and design ideas. So STLP is one of those things where, as you go through it, it's different. And in our building, we focused last year on a couple of things. We decided to take a laser engraver, a CNC machine that we have, and we have a small sort of drafting class. Small, I mean, like, we've got 20 kids, so that's probably normal size at some other schools. And the students started working through them and creating these different pieces and elements. We had some lumber and some wood pieces that were donated by a local flooring company. And what they were flooring remnants. So it was really good pieces of wood, but they're super thin. And so they're not really usable for anything else except for building materials like this. And then we got a partnership with a local coffee shop, which is called McLeod's, and that's the one right there in the middle. And the kids go through and they started practicing doing different pieces. So they would work it up in sort of this CAD design work. And then they would go in there, they would give it to the CNC machine, and it would cut it out. And so you could get like these 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional snowflakes. You could get these different kinds of pieces here with like the tiger and a brand that you give to us. The ones sitting here in the middle are actually like magnets. The red one that's sort of laying up, that's like a little button that you'd stick on your shirt. But the idea is, like, these students came into our building, after COVID, and they had no tangible experience using design software. They had no tangible experience figuring out a business model, like how much would they have to get to pay to be able to restock their sources. And they went and communicated with a coffee shop that they actually related to, because 2 of the students go there all the time and wanted to be a part of that kind of community. And so it's these kinds of elements at the high school level, but it's super simple. If you have these resources, you can do this as well inside of your classroom or inside your community. If you have a makerspace available to you somewhere, communicate with them, talk to them, and see how you would be able to do that. So this year, also in Kentucky, we got really lucky in Lexington. The Breeders' Cup happens. It's a big horse event. I know it involves horses and racing, and that's probably about it. And it took place at the horse track that's in Lexington, Kentucky, called Keeneland. Every year that it comes back to Lexington, schools get the opportunity to do this. And so what you can do is you can put in and volunteer to allow your student body to take a fiberglass horse and paint a design on it of your creation. And then it will be lacquered. So it'll be, covered in this sort of paint by the local community, and then it'll be put on display, and then they auction them off. And so we got this in February. It took until May, so we got 3 months with it. We spent about 90 different days, and the kids picked all the scenes in it. They wanted something that kind of spoke to us. The Seek, Seize, Sustain garland that goes around the neck of it. Those are our themes for our school. We want kids to seek out success. They want to sustain it. We want them to seize opportunities. It's sort of a theme as our school goes through. And again, you see like that blue and green coloring, and it literally was sort of like this. So we had kids, if they were in the art class, they could work on it. If they were in a science class and they were done with their work, they could work on it. It was a creativity outlet, but it was also a reward for students to complete academic obligations during the day. And what's great about that is it feeds into some of those resources that we wanted to our kids to learn. The idea of like persevering through something they didn't want to do, because there was a good chance that they would be able to do something they wanted to afterwards. And then with that too, we also underneath it. So I asked Mr. Kraft, he's our art teacher, why it was pink on the bottom. And he had this game plan. And so when we were done, and this was a little surprise, we got to go in, and he bought Sharpies, and all the students and the staff and everybody got to sign the bottom of the horse. And so I got to paint one little part. I asked the student, I was like, I can't paint. Please tell me what to do. And I'm looking back to see if I could see where it is. And it's right here, this little brown stick. I got to paint a little brown stick on the horse. So that was all I got to do. But the other part too of our school is we try to be unconventional. We want to teach kids different ways and different things. And so at the end of the school year last year, this was our next to last day. This is Adam Bolt. He's one of our CTE teachers. And what he did was he helps run with several other teachers our garden, our community garden. And what the kids do is that they've taken this space and they start to, in the springtime, we get items that they can take home, but they spend their time in the garden actually like growing and planting and learning the concept of like, what do they do? So when they get these plants to take home at the end of the school year, they know what to do at their home. And this project is blooming to the point at which this year, it took off. Like that's the garden over there on the left side. It got completely overgrown during the summertime. The kids come in, they clean it all out again, and they work on it as well. But our schools reached out to some local interest. The University of Kentucky is in the town that we live in, and they manage a lot of the agricultural centers in all the different counties across our state. And so we're hoping to make a connection with them to use some of this green space that we do have and convert it. We're actually talking about now, like taking this green space that's on the side of our building. It gets lots and lots of sun. I've taken kids out there. We've gone out there and measured it. Heather was talking about using math activities in my social studies class. I talked about a community activity, and we had to go out and measure the actual space itself. We had to do the elevation change from where the door is down to the tree because it has a slope. And we did it in a social studies class. Math doesn't have to be contained, but it's a creative idea. And the idea was that we want to put in one of the types of arched, I just totally forgot what it's called, an arched garden where you have the plastic wrap and the ribbing and everything on it. And we needed to make sure that this space was good to what we wanted to use it for, or what we would have to modify it for to do as well. And then we continue. We also have this space open too, where we have kids that can go sit outside. There's lots of times we talked about with COVID restrictions, we would get kids outside during the day. My third period class, which is right around 12:30 every day, 1 o'clock. My kids eat lunch and then they're inside. And so I talked to all of my freshmen. I was like, do you want to go outside today? And they almost always say yes. And this is one of their favorite spots to go out and sit and just be out in the sun. and enjoy taking in some time and just, laying the grass and being out there together. So we spend 10 minutes, and it's class time, but it's class time outside, and we do some different activities to go with it. One of the other things I also like to do, and this is just me, I really like chalk. I was actually talking to my dad about it earlier. He's a retired teacher now, and we both opine for chalkboards. And I don't have a chalkboard anymore, so I get sidewalk chalk, and we go outside and we actually draw in our parking lot as we finish activities. Like, what do you do with this? And so the idea was, my students were talking about the difference between democracies and monarchies, and how do you explain and draw that to somebody else, and what does that look like? And then lastly, as we have art that's created in our building, we make it a point of presenting student art to the students. Our school does a really great job of taking creative materials that students do and really going through them and then putting them up and creating spaces where kids can talk to each other, um, creative activities that they have, and then kind of just making sure that we share them with each other so that way they can talk about them. But the one thing that goes with all of this, so it's one of those things like say, like, this is what we are. But we're an 8 through 12 school. And what that really means is, like, we get a lot of kids that are sort of like on the left side of the screen. They come in, they're disengaged, they do not want to be a part of the process. And so myself and an English teacher, Andrew McKinnon, and Adam Kraft, the art teacher, we went through and really talked about how do we get kids to go from being so disengaged to being an engaged professional. Like, how, because like we have 4 years, maybe 4.5 if we're really lucky, to get a kid from being someone who doesn't want to be a part of society, is really just done with everything, to making them into a professional, and having them be very confident in who they are. And so a part of that was we took a lot of elements inside of Adobe Express, and we started creating like onboarding programs. We used the tools, which, if you have not used Adobe's logo tool, it is a great jumping off spot. If you teach second grade to 100th grade, I don't know how old you'd be in 100th grade, maybe 105, but if you teach any kind of gamut, this tool is an amazing spot to just start and hop in and get kids to just try and make something to start with. But one of the big things that we talked about was, like, kids really need to have ownership with the creative tools that they have. And inside of Adobe Express, if you start kids early, what we like to do was get them to create their own brand. So like on here, you can see down in the bottom left is the one that I created with the kids, and I go through and show how to like do the layering and the piecing and stuff too. And then some of my other kids that have design elements, they created our STLP, like our competition team brand. And this is one of those things that, like, lots of schools kind of do this thing as a part of this, but it's, once you click it, it becomes part of who you are. And we really figured there is this connection between, if a kid owns a brand, if they own who they are far more likely to generate work and be amazing in the creative process, like really engage in the creative process. And then, so we created this whole thing that went through it. We joke about, we have the Andy joke, like, kids are like, I don't want to own anything that I do. And, even Andy wrote his name on his toys. And that whole process goes through all of these different creative elements that we work with kids, like looking at pictures of photographs and seeing who they are. Where does that come from? What does that mean? Like, what do other people think when they see each other? And creativity looks so like, I love this slide too. Creativity looks so different around the world when people ask themselves, what do you look like? The cup, I've got my cup over here. I still use my cup and change my stickers quite often. But creativity is so different the way it stands out. You have different ways to look at Napoleon. If you're French, there's one way. If you're British, maybe the other way. And so, how do you see yourself, and really talk about this? And then one resource that we did not anticipate when we created the whole thing was, a lot of our students don't have pictures that they think of as themselves. Like, they'll do the, they'll do the selfie shot. Like, I hope my phone's in the picture here, but they have a lot of those things. But really thinking, do you have a nice professional picture for yourself as we go into a digital world? Like, how do you look for everybody? And what does that mean? And so I'd share with the kids, like, the creative picture I use for sort of my professional things when I submit to present is actually a family picture. And one of my daughters isn't even in the picture yet. This was taken before she was born. But it was one of the pictures that, I think captures what I look like very well, and sort of goes through that. But we go through this whole process with the kids, giving them ideas, letting them have some breathing. And then we really, I hope I didn't break your copyright here by tossing Yoda in the middle of it. But, we try to get kids to try, not having the space to fail, but rejigging that to being more of like, well, if you try something, I can help you get to where you need to. Like, you just got to get started. Like, it's okay, trust me, and building those trust moments to get to there, and then finishing it out. And then one of the awesome parts about this was when we finish this, kids share with other people. So we have community creators. So the kids that are on Chromebooks in the hallway, we had to sort of sparse them out throughout the building. They were sharing their branding with actual local creators, people that make T-shirts for the University of Kentucky, and also talking to other teachers about, like, how do I make my brand look better? But they were through the whole process there, and then when they were done, we made stickers for them because it was part of their goals project. They had to. We were part of the SGCs 2 years ago, and then and as part of this project, they had to come up with some branding ideas to better get people in Lexington aware of what's going on and who's a part of, like, recycling processes and things happening at their home. And so, and that's me. That's just my little. I love science. I think I should have taught science maybe instead of social studies, but I think that's all I've got there. It might have been a quick 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Bryan. That was pretty inspirational.
Thank you.
You got a lot of love in the chat there. Lots of people saying about how epic, basically, what you are doing and the type of spaces that you have at your school. I mean, yeah, lots of different opportunities for students to be creative, and you sharing that out is amazing. So really grateful for you sharing today.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll see you very soon before I bring on our
Yes.
final presenter. Okay, so for today, our final presenter, last but not least, that's for sure, is Marilyn. So,
hi.
Hello there. So, if you'd like to share your screen, just let me know and I will pop it up for you. But very grateful that you are here.
Thank you. Thank you. May I share my screen?
Yes, of course. Let's go for it. And then I will bring it up. Okay, I do see something appearing here. I will add it.
Can you see that?
Yep, it is there. The slides. Okay, I am going to take myself off and enjoy yourself.
Okay, perfect. Before we get started, I just want to thank Mel for inviting all of us here today, myself particularly. And I just think, as I was listening, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the global goals today. Melissa, when she was doing her SEL design challenge, she mentioned SDG 3. So she's really getting into, physical health, mental health. Heather, I just really loved everything you did with your authentic assessments and bringing that authenticity into your math class. And Bryan, the goals project, I actually did the same goals project as well. We designed our logos. I didn't put our logos in the presentation, but I just wanted hats off to you for doing the goals project with Dr. Williams. So I am going to share my screen. And so today, I just really want to celebrate how my students and I have been working with the global goals. My name is Marilyn McAlister. I'm from El Centro, California. This is my 30th year in education. I was a classroom teacher for 28 years. This is my second year as a district-wide resource teacher. So as many of us here today are familiar with the global goals, but just a little background knowledge. So the United Nations has 17 sustainable development goals, and the original goal was by 2030 we would be conquering the 17 goals. But during the pandemic, we actually went back a little bit, but they're great to use for students. I really enjoy inquiry, and pretty much anything a student's interested in, almost any topic in your classroom, you will be able to tie it to a global goal. So today, I'm going to show you just a couple of the ways that I infuse creativity into the global goals. So I do use the global goals as our overarching inquiry. Part of my position as a district lead, I do trainings for our gifted and talented teachers, and I also host a virtual GATE Academy, and then I'm teaching and advocating for the global goals with both groups. So I'm going to be sharing you the work I've done with my students, but I also do work with other teachers infusing global goals into their classrooms as well. So one of the things I do is with my students, we have a digital journal. And so these are a couple samples of the cover page of their digital journal. So now Google has the capacity to put in a Google drawing. So the digital journal really encapsulates everything that we do for the global goals for the year. So this is a sample of one of my students, Melanie, and it's not loading up, but you can see everything that we do a journal entry, and it's really just a nice way for students to compile their work. Let's see. So we kind of start the year getting their journal set up. My students are 6th graders, so they're able to choose the global goal that they're really interested in. We do spend time learning about the goals before they choose. The Goalkeeper Me, so there's an organization called The World's Largest Lesson. Those of us that are new to the global goals, the World's Largest Lesson has many short videos to introduce students to the global goals. But as a student advocating for the global goals, you become a goalkeeper. So this is a Goalkeeper Me project, and this one was, I'll show you the website, and we do have a resource link that Mel will share with us. You can see there's different resources, lessons that go with the Goalkeeper Me, but there is a particular graphic. Now that Canva and Adobe, I am an Adobe, there's a couple of us here are into Adobe, and some of us in here are also into Canva, but Adobe, I can see, and Canva both being able to make the same graphics. But for teachers that maybe aren't familiar and they just want something that's already ready, the World's Largest Lesson has a great graphic design element. So that is one of the things that we do as well. And then there's more of us, my little students, and then I put these all around the room so we can, as reminders, and so students, like Bryan mentioned, the identity poster. So you can see optimist, enthusiastic, sister, curious. So this really gets the identity of the students into the project as well. I know that Melisa, with her SEL, she was basically doing a design challenge with her students. What can they do to help other students feel comfortable when they're feeling nervous? So this is one of my design challenges for the global goals. So the students were in teams of 2. So they were able to get their pizza box, and inside the pizza box is the design challenge. So this one, it did have to do with, I think it was the same year that Bryan and I did the goals project with Dr. Williams. And the idea was that students would research and learn about a particular goal, and then they would use the Frisbee as their final product. So what they learned, they would put it on the Frisbee. So you can see these two girls, there's inside the box, you couldn't see them, but there were resources available for them to research and learn about the goal. And they can also use the internet to do additional research. So they learn about the goal, and they notice over here, they get a piece of construction paper as a prototype for their design, for their Frisbee. So this is one way that students show their creativity while they're also learning about the global goals. And then these are some of their final products. And I do have a poster up in the front of my room. My current space now, I have the same poster. The teachers I work with, they put the global goals up. So lots of collaboration, lots of 4 C's. When you think about creativity, I call it creative critical thinking. So in education, we do a lot of critical thinking, but infusing that creativity into the critical thinking really brings your classroom to life. So this one is the Global Goals Carnival. So every year I do something different to celebrate the global goals. Another one of my favorites was a student-led ed camp, but today I'm sharing with you the Global Goals Carnival. So students, this was actually right before we left for the pandemic. So this was my last live group that I did the global goals with. So students, depending on which goal they were interested in, they teamed up and they individually, they created their carnival game that would teach the global goals. So each student did it individually. Then they came with their team. And then with their team, they decided on one carnival game that they were going to make to teach others about the global goals. So you can see this is Jocelyn, she's working on her individual. This is a group, they were working on, I think they were doing equity. They were doing gender equality. So you can see they're discussing, and then from there, most of the groups took the best of each idea and incorporated that into a game. So then students, I had supplies, they brought in supplies. So this group, they were working on their game, and so you can see them working. And then this one, I think they had questions, and then when they answered a question correctly, then they threw the ball. So here's another one. So this one was, they were working on sustainability. So they were teaching students about sustainable energy, sustainable cars, sustainable environments. So they had Legos, and so they created a board where students, when we had our carnival, where the students were able to build. So you can see these are 2 girls that were creating their kind of the landscape for their city. And then over here, this is the day of the carnival. So students were able to come in and do some building, and then the girls were there kind of teaching them about their goal while the carnival was happening. And then the way this came about, I used to do the cardboard challenge, but then I thought I really need to make it a little bit more academic. So I've done a couple of different variations of the same, using the cardboard challenge with academics. So we do invite, we're 6th grade, we would invite the 2nd graders and 3rd graders, and then we do the site that I was at, we hosted several special needs classrooms from the county, and so our county students came in, and it was just a real celebration of the global goals and creativity. So you can see this was in December, right before the pandemic, and it was just a really, really special time for us. So these are my students. And then I do have some other students that were mainstreamed. So my students that are mainstreamed are with us as well. And so that's, kind of the big item that I wanted to share with you all today was just our Global Goals Carnival, and how you really can infuse creativity in with some, you know, bigger concepts, and parents were there, district office, and it really was just a phenomenal celebration. And one last thing I'd like to share with you, another thing that I'm passionate about is Solve in Time. So D. Lanier is on Twitter. He's a Google innovator. This was his Google Innovator project. And it's really, again, working through the steps of the design process where, you know, what's the problem? You want to show empathy. How have other people solved the problem? How can you solve the problem? So when we do this, students do choose a particular goal that they want to focus on. And then there's some note taking. So they're doing their discussion, they're taking notes as they go. And then it really culminates in students creating something to show and teach others how to tackle whatever the problem is that they, from the global goals that they chose. So these were some that they did. This was a class that, this particular class was not my class. It was another class that I taught, that I did Solve in Time with. So these are Dee's newest cards. So he's had several iterations over time. And so here's his newest cards. And if you are interested and want to learn more about the global goals, here's a few hashtags that you can follow. Global goals, SDGs, teach SDGs. And that is my share today. So hopefully you were able to learn about the global goals.
Hi, Marilyn. So that was amazing. And I don't think it was just about the global goals. I think it was about, you know, how you really celebrate others, and that idea of like the carnival, you know, to bring it all together in the end and bringing like people from everywhere to come in and see like what your kids have been doing, I think is amazing.
Yes,
I think it could be applied to so many different things, not just global goals, but like anything that people are doing, just bringing others in instead of it just being like in their classroom.
Exactly. And if I can share more, I think that's one of the things that when I go out and I teach and I work with other teachers is you have to open your doors, let other people know and see what you're doing. And I think those of us that are kind of in the Twitter space, we're used to that. We're used to, you know, sharing what we're doing. And I know sometimes people may think, oh, but it's not interesting. Well, that's because it's yours and you're used to it. But there are so many people out there that can be inspired by what you're doing. So Mel, I'm glad you noticed that really the opening the doors, going outside your space, inviting other people in, that's really where we're all going to be able to be inspired. And then something's going to spark an idea, and we're going to be, as the teachers, as the educators, we're going to be creative, but then we're going to open those doors for our students to be creative as well.
Exactly. So I am going to bring up the others who have been presenting today, so everyone can share a couple of final bits and pieces before I close this off. But it's like epic. I mean, like what everyone has been sharing, I'm just like, oh my goodness me. Amazing. Okay, so guys, you can decide who wants to go first as to like what you want to share out as a final word thing today. Or do I need to choose you? Really? Dead silence? Okay,
No,
Melissa,
I'll go. I'll
okay,
go.
Bryan.
I can't say it. No, I think it's I think Marilyn's right, and I think the way we get here is you got to open your room. You gotta really embrace the creative aspects in your building or in the group that you're working with, wherever it is, and then share it and be open enough to share when it succeeds and when it fails, so that way it can get better. I think some of the best projects kids have ever made or I've seen have had some element of, I don't like the word failure, but like challenge. You know, they had to figure out what didn't work to make it work, and then they saw it through to the end. And I think all of our, you know, creative elements show those pieces there. You have kids working independently and then in groups who have them sharing and they're reflecting. There's so many different lines and elements to it too. And to anybody, like I stumbled into SDGs through Twitter. Like I had no idea what it was. And then a teacher in my building, I was like, hey, have you seen this before? She's like, yes, I have. And it turned out like we were in two separate groups because we weren't in the same thread that year. And we didn't even know that we were working on it together. And just by sharing, we found out and then combined our projects down the road. So it's things like that, just being able to communicate and do better about communicating what you're doing with your kids that's creative.
I like that you highlighted, you didn't want to say it was a failure. In math, especially, you know, kids make mistakes and then they think they're not good at math. And so I always celebrate the mistakes. I'm like, good job. Now you have to teach me how you did that. So I can make sure other students don't do that. And so many kids shut down when they make those mistakes now instead of persevering and fighting through it. And so I like to highlight those mistakes, especially when I make them or I see like my colleagues make them. Obviously, I make sure it's okay that I use them as an example, but students need to see it's okay to make those mistakes. And sometimes better things come out of those mistakes.
Okay, I'll go. I would just say that no matter the learner or ability, there's creativity there, and it's our job to spark that. I'm also an advocate of failing enthusiastically. I do it every day, and we celebrate it every day, and my kids laugh it off and keep going. So I think it's the way it's presented and modeled, and if we could teach them at a younger age, then when they get older, it's not that big of a deal to fail enthusiastically. But I am a huge, passionate advocate for any age, kindergarten, preschool, first, second. They can code, they can do all the things that everyone else can, even no matter the ability. My daughter has Down syndrome. She can do anything anybody else can. It just might look a little different. But it's our job to spark that creativity.
Wow, I'm just inspired by everybody. I'm like a big note taker, and I feel like I could make a comment on everybody. But I just want to say, as I'm kind of listening and synthesizing, I think that what I want to share is not being afraid to try. And I think that does go in with the failure, that I think sometimes we limit ourselves with limiting beliefs about, what is creative. So when Mel approached me about creativity, I had to think, well, what am I doing that's creative? But I think that could have been a limiting belief, and it could have stopped me from taking a risk and sharing. But I think if each of us in our own kind of sphere of influence, that we're showing, what we're doing, and then we're also, talking to other people and being inspired. And Bryan's going, he claims he's from this little town in Kentucky, but look at you, you're at ISTE, you're a world leader. So I think each of us does have that capacity to be creative and really share and nurture those around us, adults and children alike.
Well, thank you to all of you. I mean, I think you have inspired everyone, whether they're watching the live right now or whether they're watching, the replay. I did want to share your Twitter handle so that people, if they, obviously, I think they are inspired, I mean, really, but if they do want to reach out to you to ask you about some of those ideas that you shared today about, how you got something started or how you're really celebrating this and how to, because some people, I guess, they're still a bit shy about how to get started with these things, right? And like, oh, I don't think my work's good enough, that sort of attitude. So they might reach out to you, hopefully, maybe on Twitter or in some other way that you have shared today. But yes, I want to say a huge thank you to you guys for putting up your hand and say, yes, I will do it, I will come on and, talk about how I celebrate creativity wherever you are, because I know that for some people that is quite a challenge to come and do that. So I do appreciate your time and your inspiration for today. And for anyone else that's interested maybe in presenting in the future, we do have a couple more volumes coming up in January and in February. So if you're interested, please just reach out. I'm sure you've got something that is really cool to share, even though maybe you don't think it is right now. It definitely is. I just know it. Okay, so don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, and I'm sure that anyone here, also not just me, would encourage you to do so. And so thank you very much. And so bye for now, everyone.